Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Condish Retrospective. I'm Wade,
And I'm the Invisible Scott.
Count Wadula, I guess, and we're doing surprise. We're doing another retrospective.
Yeah, because it's Halloween, and we thought, you know what?
Let's have a good episode.
Well, originally we planned to do this one first,
Yes.
and then we realized, oh snap, the spooky season has a Friday the 13th. Let's do the Friday the 13th movies.
Yeah.
So we did that. So, in a weird way, this isn't the bonus. That was the bonus.
Yeah. So we're doing the Universal Horror Monsters. We're only doing the main six.
Yes.
We're doing the first ones. No sequels, so Bride of Frankenstein's not in this. And we're doing the mainstream, the ones that are in every single set. So Hunchback, Phantom of the Opera, they're not included in this.
Right, basically...
The set I have has Phantom of the Opera, but since it's not in every set, we're not going to count it.
Pretty much the ones that got sequels.
Yeah.
Are what we're going to talk about this, but we're only going to talk about their maiden voyages.
Yes. So that's Wolfman, Frankenstein, Creature, Dracula, Invisible Man, the Mummy. Yeah. So we're going to be talking about those six, and we're going to rank them at the end of this episode.
Oh.
So yes, it's going to be. I will say all these movies are good.
Yeah, none of these suck. Yeah. For lack of a better phrase, none of them suck.
Is this the first Halloween retrospective where we had all movies that were good?
Yes. Okay. I think this might be the first retrospective we've done, period, where it's just universally just good movies.
Universally.
You could argue our Home Alone 3 episode.
I said Halloween.
Right, but I'm saying even of all of our retrospectives, period.
Yeah.
Home Alone 3, I think, comes the closest.
Yeah, so I guess we're also gonna do this chronologically by the year it came out,
and in some cases the month in the year it came out.
Yes.
Especially in the way of our first movie, since the first two came out in the same year. So we are going to start with the very first, the one that started it all, Wade's costume's sake, Dracula.
From 1931, starring Bela Lugosi as the titular Dracula. We're not talking about the Spanish version. We're talking about the old American version.
Yeah, I know some people in the comments are going to say, wait, what about the Spanish one? That one's better. Whether you think it's better or not, it's still kind of the same movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think to give that one its own spot in what we're doing now would be splitting hairs. Maybe if we start doing sequels, maybe we'll throw it in there. But for this one, we're just doing the Bela Lugosi movie.
Yeah, by Todd Browning.
Who, funny enough, directed a movie we reviewed recently on the Criterion Connection, Freaks.
Yeah.
Which you can check right here on Condish Productions. But why don't you wait till afterwards? Just want to put that in your mind as we talk about another Todd Browning classic.
Yeah, so we're talking about the classic Dracula. You know, the eyes, the creature of the night.
Yeah.
They saw Bella and they're like, these eyes. These eyes are the prize.
Oh, if there's one thing I can say, the first, 3 movies of this chronology, eyes are, without a doubt, the focus. Because you've got the look of Dracula. Mm-hmm. You've got that first shot of the Frankenstein monster. Mm-hmm. You've got those close-ups in the Mummy.
Yeah.
But I think this one of all is the best example. Because Bela Lugosi, his face, his eyes, so striking, just unbelievable. And the best part of it all is, I guarantee you, they probably didn't realize what they had until they started shooting and realized, my God, it's unbelievable.
It's a lot. It's the big old castle. To me, this is carried by 3 actors. The rest are fine.
3?
Yes. There's Bela Lugosi as Dracula. There's Edward Van Sloan as Van Helsing.
Oh my God! How could I forget about Edward Van Sloan?
And of course,
one of the 3 musketeers of the unsung heroes of the Universal.
And another musketeer. We'll talk about another one soon. Another musketeer is Dwight Fryer.
Oh, Dwight Frye is the man. Dwight Frye is absolutely the man. Not just in this movie or in Frankenstein, but just in general. He is so good of an actor, and it's a shame he died so young. I think he was only in his 40s.
Oh, wow.
When he passed away.
He to me, he is the breakout performance. Bela Lugosi is fine. I mean, Bela Lugosi is very like mesmerizing and stoic mostly,
Right.
and with a little bit of like charisma with it. But Dwight Fryer is just going ham in the beginning, and when he's in the madhouse, he is just
And it's such
and
a
he's conflicted too, because he doesn't want to be, you know, kind of feeding Dracula,
right.
but
Well,
he does,
and it's really nice how you have that nice opening sequence of him traveling. He gets to this town. Basically the people in this town tell you, the audience, everything you need to know going into this movie.
Watch out for the Dracula.
And you know, you just see how he's just like a regular normal guy who's on his way to meet Count Dracula. Doesn't seem to quite know what is actually going on and what his actual purpose is. But you know, the people warn him. They say, "Hey, don't go." You know, it's nothing but pure evil going to that castle. And what I really loved in that moment is after he leaves and he gets on the stagecoach. Now back then, I don't know if anyone realized what was going on, because you know, it wasn't what it is now. It wasn't the iconic moment. But we now know, you know, with the power of hindsight, what's going on, because you see the person who the cabbie, and it's clearly Bela Lugosi.
Yeah.
And you know, like, oh, we've already, you know, like we already know, like, oh, we've already seen him. We know he's doing his tricks, you know. And just that right there, once you know what's going on, it gets you ready for the kind of movie you have in store for you.
And this is the story is mostly the classic story of Dracula. Like, he gets Renfield, he goes over to England, I believe.
Yes.
And he has to, I believe, what was her name? Helen. It was Helen, I think. No, what was her name? It was Mina. Helen played Mina. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was Mina. Mina and John Harker.
Yeah, John Harker, and it's mostly a cat and mouse kind of like one-upsman with like Van Helsing and Dracula.
Right.
Because the reveal of the mirror, it's a really cool scene there. Yeah, I mean the neck bites with Mina, really fun. It's really atmospheric.
Very atmospheric for the time.
I will say it's probably. I watched this with my fiance. She's never seen any of them. She's seen Creature, but she's never seen the other ones all the way through. But I've always thought Dracula. We'll talk about the rankings later, but I'm not really the hugest Dracula fan.
Which is funny because that's the costume you went with.
I think it's a little slow.
I can see where you're coming from on that.
It also sucks because when you have versions like Nosferatu out there, or which I think is a more creepier version.
True, but you also have it's also guilty of the penalty of being a silent movie.
And also,
some people can forgive black and white or sepia or whatever, but a lot of people can't forgive silent.
I mean, I'll always say Horror Dracula, the Hammer Dracula, is the better Dracula.
You know, I've never seen a Hammer movie in my life.
Oh well,
so that's something that
Horror Dracula. It's Christopher Lee as Dracula and Peter Cushing as Van Helsing. It's an interesting little take on it, but yeah. So Dracula. I mean, the ending is kind of a lot. You'll notice Elias Universal.
These all
just kind of end.
Yeah. I don't know if that's indicative of just the time or if that was just they didn't know what to do with these monster movies. But that is one thing that I will say all these movies have. None of these have like a long drawn out ending. It's very just, you know, resolution. We're done.
Frankenstein. We'll talk about Frankenstein. They kind of have like a little coda at the end.
Little bit.
But like Wolfman just ends.
Wolfman just ends. I think Creature just ends.
Yeah, Invisible Man has an ending.
Dracula just ends. Yeah. Invisible Man does have an ending.
But yeah, I mean, I don't have. Bela Lugosi. That's all I need to know about Dracula. He really carries the movie a lot.
Well, one of the things I wanted to talk about was I feel like one of the things that hinders this movie because of history is the fact that, you know, there is a lot of that. Is he a vampire? Isn't he a vampire? Amongst people, not so much the audience, because we already know. But I feel like because of how iconic it is, we never have a moment to like forget anything. You know, because sometimes when you're watching a movie, you might forget a detail or two. So maybe like some aspects of it you may think like, oh, maybe he isn't really a vampire. But the fact that we now know, I think that's one of the things that kind of hurts some of what I think would make this a better movie. Like if you went into this somehow not knowing what a vampire is or who Dracula is, I feel like you would be able to get a little more out of it. Kind of like when I showed my wife Empire Strikes Back for the first time, and she had no idea about the big twist in that movie. So when she finds out Darth Vader is Luke's father, she was blown away.
That's shocking to me.
And I feel like maybe that's what they were going for with this one, and because of what we know historically, maybe it's something that has gotten lost to time.
Yeah.
You know, because you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's like when you watch a movie with a good twist ending, that's the connective tissue to everything you see in the movie. Sometimes it can make for an interesting second watch, but sometimes it can make that second watch kind of suck because you know everything that's going on. And I think this is one of those situations where I think hindsight, either knowing ahead of time or, you know, if you somehow don't know what a vampire is and you watch a second time, it kind of hinders it a little. And that might play into why I think you might feel that way.
And next we're talking about Frankenstein, 1931.
Same year as Dracula,
James Whale. This is his first outing as a director of these Universal horror movies. And we'll talk about James Whale soon. And then
but not his only.
Yeah.
Because of the movies we're talking about in this series, he's actually directed 2 of them. This one and The Invisible Man, and I think you said he did another one?
I believe it did Bride. I couldn't remember if he did or not.
This is the one that I can't do it word for word, but I can definitely do it scene for scene.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I know all the beats, I know all the moments, I know what's gonna, you know what I mean? Fritz. In a good way.
Dwight Frye is Fritz.
Which as much as I loved him as Renfield, I think I like him better in this one because he is such a dick to the monster.
Oh, he's the worst.
It's like, and it's sad, but it's also like he does it so well. There's one of the things I think Dwight Frye is great at is playing these really weird characters who, you know, like, I don't know, he just manages to give them these personalities that I guarantee you were not in the script. No. I guarantee you he put his own little spin on these characters and really made them come alive to where you remember him. You remember Fritz. You remember Renfield fondly.
Yeah.
And one thing about this movie that I think confuses a lot of people is you talk about the stereotype of the mad scientist assistant, and everyone always says Igor, but that's not true.
Yeah, it's not,
because it comes the stereotype of the mad scientist comes from this movie, but not, and maybe the idea of the assistant, but not Igor. In fact, Igor isn't even in this movie. No. He's another character played by Bela Lugosi in at least
Son of Frankenstein.
He's in 2 of the sequels.
I believe so, yeah.
But he might be in another movie, but he's not. Like, somehow they got merged into one stereotype, one trope. I don't know how that happened.
There's Colin Clive, who is Henry Frankenstein. Very underrated in this.
Nails it.
Because, I mean, you have Dwight Frye as Fritz. You have Edward von Sloan as Dr. Walden, I believe.
He's one of the doctors.
He's the main doctor. The doctor.
He's always playing a doctor. He's very doctorly. When you look at this man, if you would think if he wasn't an actor, he'd be a doctor.
And of course, Boris Karloff
as the monster.
Oh my gosh! Like, I mean, he's credited as question mark in the player's screen
at the beginning. At the end, he's credited officially.
But like that reveal of when he shows up, they have his back. They build up the suspense to the reveal of him so good to where, like, when he opens the door, you think he's just gonna walk through. No, he's backwards.
Yeah, they really savor that suspense.
And he turns around, and
that first close up of his face tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
That there's nothing going on behind those eyes.
Yeah.
It is a brain yet to be molded.
A criminal brain. a formerly criminal brain.
Yes, but
So this is like a redemption of that brain.
but and this is the real question: nature versus nurture.
Yes.
Is he? But just because a criminal brain was put in his head, does that automatically make him a criminal? Well,
No.
you have to watch the movie to find out.
Yeah.
But no, it's a really great, like, it's one of those movies that I feel like you can look at as a straightforward monster movie and look for no subtext, and you'll still have a good time. But when you're looking for that subtext, and everyone knows by now the whole thing that Henry was the real monster, the monster was a victim. Everybody knows that part of it because that's the story. But I'm saying, like, even if you looked at it from the perspective of like how a villager would look at this, like, they're not going to bother to care about his story or stuff like that. I think it works in that way where I don't think the other movies can work. They're all there's one vision of this monster, there's one vision of this villain, and that's it. Whereas with this one, you have at least a dual perspective of how you can look at it.
Yes.
And I think that, especially for this time, but I think for the genre, I think that was a huge thing that I don't think too many people got right away or noticed right away. Like, a lot of these movies, they're these ridiculously insane scenarios, but especially this one. I think this one's probably the most ridiculous if you think about it. And the way everything is done, it's done so earnest and so serious and so. And
that lab set is so good.
I mean, is that not the what you want in a mad scientist lab? It's got all the bells and whistles, the lights, the electrodes, and everything like that. Like, this movie is it's quintessential horror and quintessential science fiction, really.
And also, they did some bold stuff in this. They killed a kid in this, which this ain't the scene. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, he murdered a girl. It made no sense. But like, some people like kind of are debating that scene. I'm like, he doesn't know better.
Well,
he sees the dandelions are floating, and he doesn't have any more dandelions. So it's like, well, I guess everything just floats and throws her in.
Yeah, based on what based on the situation, he believes that she'll float. I mean, it's not my fault her father never taught her how to swim.
That is an unfortunate looking father. But anyway.
Oh my God, that tore him up though.
That scene where he's carrying, because they're having at some point Henry Frankenstein has his wedding, and everyone in some German town got their lederhosen on, and they're just partying it up, and they're partying, and he's just walking stone faced, like in shock, and he's carrying that's such a good scene, and they hold on it so much to where, like, you really feel it's one of those things, like, you feel desensitized now in, like, this 21st century. You feel desensitized, but how did people in like 1931 feel when they saw this film?
Yeah, I mean that's a shocking.
Oh, there's
concept. I mean, that's a shock. I mean, that's still kind of an unnerving concept to this day, but I would imagine back then a lot of that probably freaked people out.
The shot of Fritz hanging by his neck. You don't see detail, but you see that big old shadow. The Frankenstein movies really, and especially Bride of Frankenstein, they really utilize that harsh lighting and those shadows really.
Oh my God.
Especially when Frankenstein walks into the lab for the first time after the reveal. He's walking and you have that shadow shining on him. Makes him giant. Makes him massive.
And also, going back to what you were saying about the time period, I mean, think about this. Zombie movies aren't a thing.
No.
The concept of anything involving, reviving the dead coming back to life, reviving the dead, this is new stuff for people as far as, like, film is concerned, being able to see it. Sure, the books had been around, so there was an idea of it, but to see it, a depiction of it had to be, at that point in time, probably, like,
madness,
too
crazy.
Much for some people to handle.
Yeah.
Like, that intro at the beginning.
Yeah.
That intro at the beginning, we mock it today. But I would think back then it was deadly serious.
But there's one thing that kind of, like, makes me, I forget about. I don't think I've ever really noticed it until I've watched this movie like dozens of times. There's one part that I just never noticed until this rewatch. Maybe it's because it's on the Blu-ray, or maybe I don't know. But Baron Frankenstein's whistle. Did you notice his whistle? Whenever he says an S, anything that ends with an S, Frankenstein, the S has a whistle every time he talks.
I never noticed that, and now I'm gonna notice it every time I watch it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Wade. Thank you very much for ruining one of my favorite horror movies.
Also, I love how he's also kind of like a nice little comedic effect to the movie. I think because everyone's so serious.
Well, that's one thing a lot of these movies have. There's usually somebody who's like a little too ridiculous for everything else that's going on. And yeah, he's definitely it for this movie.
Yeah. So that's all I have for Frankenstein. You want to move on to the next movie?
Yes.
Okay. Now we're talking about The Mummy, but you're not dressed as you're the Invisible Man.
No, I'm the Invisible Man. You can't see me, but like trust me, I'm invisible.
The Mummy, by I think his name is Carl Freund or Frund.
I did not know how to say that, and I'm really glad you attempted it because I was worried I was going to butcher his name.
Yeah, this is another Boris Karloff joint, as they say.
I think they saw dollar signs in him once the Frankenstein movie happened.
That facial structure, man.
And it's perfect. And what's great about this is like, so with that one, with Frankenstein, he's playing one monster, and technically in this one he is two. However, in a way, he's playing two monsters because you have that opening.
The one that was like, was it 4 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that. The opening that was like supposed to be 5 years in the past.
The one,
10 years.
Maybe not the opening, but the part where like you see him open his eyes.
Yeah, that's when they find the body.
And the way he looks in that scene, and I don't know how they did it, but it looks fantastic to this day. Like it's one of the best mummy effects you'll ever see.
Speaking back to Frankenstein, when he's like fluttering his eyes, that's similar to when the mummy he slowly like gets that dust and dirt and all that stuff out of his eyes, and he's just opening it.
Yeah. So you have that, but then you also have him in his civilian form as Ardith Bey, which honestly is one of the best names I've ever heard.
Imhotep's a great name, but Ardith Bey
is a great name.
Yeah.
And so he kind of has this like dual nature about himself, kind of like how Frankenstein had a dual nature, but with him it's more in this case it's more of dual nature in the sense of he has a facade. He is the mummy, he is Imhotep, he's trying to bring his dead love back to life, but he's got to put on this character of Ardith Bey to try to get the pieces where he wants them. In a way, he's playing a game of human chess with these people and trying to figure out, who's the reincarnation. And once he figures out who the reincarnation is, how do I get everything to go my way so I can bring her back and I can have my eternal.
Because of course there's a thorn in his side. Edward von Sloan
as
Dr. Muller. Like
totally. Like I said, you need a doctor, man. Ed Van Sloan, man.
Speaking of this, back to the Boris with the eyes. That really cool shot of him out of the galls and stuff like that. It's 5 years in the future, or 10 years, something like that. And he now is like, he's Ardith Bey, but has like those eyes,
the close-ups.
Oh my!
They do it a couple times in the movie. I was surprised that they did it as many times as they did, considering like it's not like Dracula where that's part of his power. It's just an intense. It might have been part of his power, but it didn't feel as much like it in a Dracula. But I mean, just Karloff's eyes are just so commanding.
I think this movie has some of the best pacing. It's got so much going on with it.
Yes.
There's a lot of movies that are just simple. Like Wolfman, simple story. This one has a lot of like ins and outs. Just like they had the flashback of his life when he got mummified alive.
Yeah, they don't do that often.
Like they showed it, and I'm thinking to myself because before I've seen this movie, I mean I was like 9 when the Mummy, the Brendan Fraser one came out, and that one like. It's slightly different, very much different actually. But actually, fun fact, the guy that has like the tattoos on his face,
Ardith Bey.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. And like there's murder involved. Speaking of first, there's probably my favorite starlet in a film in one of these Universal horror movies is Zia Zohan as I think Helen. I'm not gonna say the princess name. I'm not even gonna try. But that outfit she is wearing in the end is very revealing for 1932. Whoa, whoa, girl. May have had a crush on her when I was a kid. I don't know. She has just like Boris Karloff. She has those eyes. They're just like maybe that's why they casted her. Maybe
that would make sense
because of Imhotep's eyes. Maybe there's that mesmerizing, and there's a lot of Egyptian folklore in there with
whether or not it's accurate, we don't know, but
yes.
It's done well enough to where you kind of don't care.
Yeah, with Anubis and stuff like that, like very good climax. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff in The Mummy, man.
Absolutely.
And every time I watch them, I forget how good it is.
It really is, because this is a movie that is a great example of being able to do a lot with very little. Because if you really think about it, not a lot goes on in this movie. No. It's a lot of talking, and yet it works so well, and you hang on to everything, and you're really
especially at the end when she shows up.
Yeah, and she's now believes she is the reincarnation.
Yeah. And then the boyfriend, forget his name, and Frank and Muller go there to stop him, and like that's a very kind of like climatic, like kind of like build up, and it ends with him turn to a skeleton. Spoiler, but like they do that like the gradual. They do it later in the Wolfman, like that fade into the next shot.
They hadn't quite got it until the Wolfman. Wolfman was the perfect use of that.
Yeah.
But no, this movie, like I said, this movie's great. It's kind of interesting going from two movies that are focusing on Europe, going to Africa in a sense. Well, no, not in a sense, but like, we're going to Africa, we're going to Egypt. Makes for an interesting setting. You have a whole lot of new folklore you can play around with and use. I think one of the most underrated scenes of the whole movie is at the very beginning, when the guy he's got the little chest or whatever, and he basically sets all this in motion. He's the one that opens it up, and he takes the scroll out, and when he does, that's what brings Imhotep to life. And just the moment of him being so freaked out that he's laughing hysterically, and he says something to the extent of, "I think your mummy's going to take a walk."
Yeah.
I love the way he does that scene is done. It's done so well, where in a movie like this, in hindsight, it's very easy for something like that to come off as hokey and lame and funny, but it's played well. Like it has a charm to it. It does. You don't laugh at it, but it brings a smile to your face. And like I said, it could give you that feeling of uneasiness that I think they were going for when the movie first came out. This is an absolute classic in all meanings of the word.
And almost every rendition of it has been just as good. We're not talking about the Tom Cruise one, of course.
What?
Anyway, 1933, Invisible Man, James Whaley's back.
Hi.
And this is the introduction of Claude Rains in this, who is the other unsung musketeer of this, because Claude Rains, we'll talk in Wolfman, but he is so good in this. This movie, I don't know how scary it was, but so Christy's never seen it. Right. When she got to the scene when he escapes the inn of the annoying caretaker lady, and he steals the person, that's the whole segment where he steals the person's bike, and then throws the bike at the people, and then hits them with the broom, and then pushes the stroller over the baby over and takes the guy's hat, laughing hysterically. It's one of the funniest things in all these movies. I don't know if it's supposed to be funny, Like, it's because he has such glee when he does it.
You gotta look at it like this. Of all the monsters, he's not really a monster. He's in that
He's
group,
deranged.
but he's a man. He's just a regular person, just like you and I, who just happens to be invisible. Dracula
probably has a higher body count, though.
True. I'm just saying, Dracula's a vampire. Frankenstein is essentially a living corpse.
Frankenstein's monster.
Frankenstein's monster, thank you. The Wolfman is just that, a wolf man.
Yeah.
The creature from the Black Lagoon. He's a fish man.
Yeah.
This is a regular person. This is somebody who, man of science, an intellectual, who was basically driven mad because of an experiment that he can't seem to go back. There was also
this little subplot that just totally breeze over, is that he was on monocaine. He was like on some sort of drug.
Well, I don't think it's a subplot. I think the idea is
the serum that he did was monocaine like a main like thing with
given his behavior. I think the implication is that the monocaine was used in his formula, and that's what really drove him insane.
Also, let's talk about his name, Dr. Jack Griffin.
Great name.
That's a great name. When he shows up, one of my favorite shots in all these movies is when he shows up at that inn and it's snowing. He's got the hat and he's got the coat and
the fake nose, the glasses.
So cool looking. Great. It's a great shot, great lighting, great look, awesome. It doesn't beat when he's in his leisure robe, though.
Right.
Now that is a look in its own.
Well, and it's also like you think about the creativity of him also wearing a wig with it, because when he takes the hat off, you can see a tuft of hair. Also, much like I have here.
Also great. Like I believe they had used a lot of negative space with how they did the effect.
Yeah, the effect still looks really good. Yeah. The only
one that doesn't is when he's the floating shirt.
Yeah,
that's the only time it does not look good.
I was gonna say the only thing is like when they take off the head and he's just like from the neck down not invisible because he's wearing clothes. There's a few moments where you can see a piece or two of the collar key out, but aside from that, it looks really good. Like you can tell. I mean, obviously you can tell it's not real, but it's not done in a way that ruins the moment. Like it looks really good. It really fits with the time period and how film looked back then. And just, like this whole movie is just, you can't even call it a descent into madness, because from the very start, he's just a dickhead. He's just a dick to everyone. He's angry. He's irritable. He says like, "Oh, I would have been able to have found the antidote, but no one would leave me alone in that inn." Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Number one, I don't believe that for a second. He's a dick. He was going to cause mischief whether he wanted to admit it or not. Yeah. And number two, why would you go to an inn? Why wouldn't you look for go to a secluded cabin or go to
that barn,
a lab or something?
That didn't work out.
Because why didn't they go to that one guy's lab? The doctor who his girlfriend brought.
Yeah.
After Dr. Kemp called him.
Not yet. The guy is not Kemp.
Yeah, why didn't they just work out of his thing? I don't know, but I mean, this one was surprising because of the ones we watched, this is the only one I hadn't seen prior. So this was my first time seeing this movie, so I didn't know what story-wise, I didn't know what to expect. Obviously, I knew to expect an invisible man, but I
expected that he was kind of like, I'm gonna rule the world. And crash a train.
I was actually what surprised me the most was the fact that we start this movie with him invisible.
Yeah.
I thought maybe we would get an opening where he tries it, he becomes invisible, and then we cut to how the movie starts. But no, we're right into it. He's already invisible.
You don't see him visible until the end.
That's true.
Which is a great little touch.
But here's the question I have. How did the doctor know he was going to become visible when he died?
I don't know.
Was the doctor in the room when he concocted this thing?
So I'm guessing you're invisible when your brain and your heart are working. There's a point where, if this makes sense, there's a point where he tells Kemp that he has to wear clothes when he eats because you can see his food digesting.
Right.
But when he was in the hospital and he got shot in both lungs, they couldn't see the bullet in his lungs? Because if you see his food digesting, because it's a foreign object, wouldn't you see the bullets just lodged in his lungs unless it pierced it and went through? So I don't know.
I mean that's that's a valid question in my opinion.
Either way, he dead.
Yeah. I one thing that I thought was really nice was seeing all the plans that they came up with to stop him, because
the net, yeah.
You got the net and everything, but the one that eventually did him in, I thought was very, like, kind of makes you wonder why they didn't think of something like that just like lure him to a secluded place and then burn it down.
There's one part, like when he's in the barn and he's to the farmer that rats him out in the end. I thought he was going to be like, it takes his pitchfork and stab the Invisible Man. When I first saw it years ago, I always think it every time. I'm like, oh, he's going to stab him with the pitchfork, thinking it's just hay.
Right.
And kills the Invisible Man right there.
That would have been an interesting way to go.
There's an advanced plot with Kemp. By the way, the best part of Invisible Man is the dynamic between Kemp and Jack Griffin. Of just like how he manipulates that, how he's like threatening Kemp.
He doesn't manipulate him. Manipulating him would imply that he's toying around with him or whatever. No, he's just outright, this is what you're going to do. I'm going to kill some people. You're going to help me. And this is how we're going to go about
Don't rat me out. And he rats him out. He's like, I'm going to kill you at 10 o'clock tonight.
And it makes you wonder, did he tell him that with the full intent to do it? Or did he tell him that knowing he would then rat him out to the police?
No, I don't know.
Because I
think it was like an insurance policy because he knows Kemp's a little bit of a chicken.
Right, but also if he says like, oh, I'll kill you by 10, like let's say maybe
he doesn't make that threat until he's actually ratted out.
Right. But what I'm saying is
he knew.
But I'm saying Kemp could have easily have, for him to say like, oh, at 10 o'clock I'm gonna kill you. He could easily skip town. He could do something else. He has time. I mean, granted, he'd have, Griffin could follow him. He could follow him, which he inevitably does.
Great, that's a great moment.
But I'm saying, like, in a way, like, was it a full-on threat, or was he kind of, sort of giving him an out,
But he definitely killed the crap out of Cam.
But there's one thing about this movie that I don't think gets talked about enough. This movie is so filthy because there is a naked man in like 90% of it. Yeah. Just out there, dong flapping in the wind, probably laying some invisible turds on people's faces. No one the wiser.
Would his turds be invisible?
Oh, that's a good question.
Invisible turd.
Well, no, because if his food would be visible, I would imagine his turds would have to be visible.
But he died.
Oh,
he creates it.
Oh. Let us know in the comment section. Do you think the Invisible Man's turds would also be invisible? You've taken my little joke and you've taken it to another stratosphere.
That's what I'm here for. I'm here to expand the mind.
And I'm here to remind you that technically speaking, there's a big old invisible floppy wiener in this movie. You don't want to think about it, but it's true. That man is naked through the majority of it. Deal with it. Now you're all gonna go back. You're gonna watch the movie, and you're just gonna imagine a nude Claude Rains throughout the entire movie, doing everything he's doing, but butt ass naked.
And next, 1941, The Wolfman, directed by, I had the last name. What was his first name? I have my notes right here. It's George Wagner, whatever. Had two G's.
Probably Wagner.
Very interesting. And it stars Lon Chaney Jr. It's the first one of Lon Chaney Jr.
Yes.
There's his father, who did... Technically, he's a Universal Monster, Phantom of the Opera.
Well, he did the original Phantom of the Opera film.
Yes.
Not the one...
Not the 90s classic.
Not the later one from 43, I believe.
No.
That's a different Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
However, it is interesting. You have two men essentially sharing the same name, both with legendary film careers in not necessarily just monsters, but just, special effects being special effect actors.
Yeah.
It's and I mean, you talk about an underrated actor, and I know that's a word that gets thrown around a lot. But when you talk about a guy who's not only good at the special effects, but I think just a good actor, period, I think Lon Chaney Jr. is up there.
Lon Chaney Jr. is so good in this. He has every single emotion throughout the film. He plays Larry Talbot. He inherits an estate, but his father's still alive. But I guess his father left it to his brother, and his brother died, so now he's got inherited.
His twin brother. Because if you look at the portrait, it's also Lon Chaney Jr.
Yes, so Lon Chaney Jr. plays Larry, and he's very suave.
Wait, is it an estate or is it a company?
I think it's both.
Because I was going to say, I think he's inheriting. It feels more. It would make more sense if he was inheriting a company.
Yeah, because
then you could do that while you're alive.
Yeah, so
I guess you could just give it up.
Yeah, I think he just left it to someone. Left it to
Larry.
His brother, Larry. So Larry, he's very suave. Like he's very trying to get Gwen.
He's a
The telescope is creepy in 2023. It's very creepy if you think about it.
But you know what? You use I'll say this: him using the telescope wasn't creepy as how he went about using the information he had.
That's the part where I was like, that's creepy.
But they established, he loves his father, he loves his family. He, as you said, he inherits this company through the fact that his older brother had passed away, so he's the next in line. He's a handyman. He's worked with telescopes, but it seems like he's very basically anything that has to be done with your hands, he can do.
That's a very nice touch of a character where he knows the mechanics of things, but when he gets he becomes the Wolfman. He can't figure this one out. He knows how to fix an engine or do this and that. This is the one thing he cannot figure out.
If you think about it...
And it's so good. It's such a good detail.
If you think about it, he's the opposite of Tim the Toolman Taylor. Whereas Tim the Toolman Taylor was like, real men don't need instructions. Larry Talbot's like, I need Wolfman instructions. That's one of the things about this that I think is lost nowadays, because we know all about like the lore of werewolves and stuff, is the fact that in this movie, like, he's never heard of a werewolf. He doesn't know what a werewolf is.
But the whole town has, apparently.
True. Which is why they even sell a cane that's a wolf repellent.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's never heard of one, so he doesn't know what they do. He doesn't know how they act. He doesn't know how you stop one. He doesn't know what to look for.
There's one element of this movie, this lore, that I don't think carries over in another movie, that I think's a really cool lore thing, is he sees his next victim in the palm of their hand.
Yes.
With the pentagram, which is just a star. They probably couldn't.
At that point in time, you could not put a satanic image in a Hollywood film.
But I thought that was really a cool little detail. You don't see in a lot of like Wolfman renditions.
And they show it too. Like, it's not like, it's implied that he sees it. Like, they actually show it. And again, an example of like early special effects. When Bela, played by Bela Lugosi,
obviously glad he gave his name.
Which, if there's one thing this movie did for his career, is it taught everyone how to properly say his name.
And also taught us that he looks good in the mustache.
He does.
Also, it was screwed up because the pentagram is where you get bitten. He had it right here on his head, so he got bit right here.
Yes,
that's brutal.
And so after meeting Gwen, Larry, Gwen, Jenny,
third wheel Jenny,
they go to get their fortunes told. They find Bela, who's the fortune teller. He goes to do the tarot cards. And I forget what causes him to basically like give up on the cards. Like,
I always admire.
Something happens. I think he
sees the
he sees it on her hand afterwards. But something I can't remember what
flowers
makes he sees the wolfbane, and that makes him like
that's right
go nuts. So then he goes to do her palm.
She didn't use the wolfbane much.
And when he goes to look at her palm, he sees the mark. So that means he's gonna go after her. And one of the things about Bela as the werewolf that it doesn't bother me. I just have I have questions. So when Bela turns, he's a wolf. He's not a wolf man. He's a wolf.
I feel like it's
but
because
when Larry transforms, he's a wolf man.
I feel like it's because well, one, I think the main reason is because Bela was cursed longer, he became more and more and more like a wolf. That's my brain making sense of it. He just became a wolf. As the longer you are, the more you become less man and more wolf. That's how I view it.
So what you're saying is it's an evolution.
But here's another question. Lon Chaney Jr., when he's the Wolfman, he just has the same outfit on. Like, he changed his outfit.
Shut up.
You see what I mean? You can't think about that logic.
Do you think the Wolfman would look as good would work as good in a suit?
No, I think the Wolfman is a great look.
The outfit without the shoes, you got the wolf feet.
Also, that's Lon Chaney when he realizes what's going on. Also, I love that the love triangle with, I forget his name. He's the gamekeeper of the estate.
Gwen's
fiance, and he knows what's up. He
definitely knows.
And there's an awkward moment when they're at the carnival, and Lon Chaney's like, I don't want to deal with this. It's kind of awkward.
And the thing is, he's
still
a gentleman though, because he even says hey, there's Larry Talbot. Let's go over there. Show you I'm not sore about this.
Yeah, but I love the scene when he's starting to transform and he's starting realizing, oh my god, my legs, oh my god. The amount of emotion in Lon Chaney's face without the makeup is so good. One of my favorite scenes of the entire movie involves Claude Rains, who plays his father, John Talbot. I had to look it up because they look very much the same age.
Yes.
I looked it up. Lon Chaney in this film, 1941, is 35 years old.
All right.
Claude Rains in this film, at 1941, is 52.
Really?
He doesn't even look 52.
I think Lon Chaney just came out of the womb looking 45.
Yeah, he just did. But there's a scene.
It's like congratulations, it's a middle-aged man.
Yeah, but there's that scene where they're talking. He's basically kind of coming clean to his father about the Wolfman
and telling him I believe I am the one doing all this. I am the wolf.
And it's a great scene of they're talking about good and evil, what's right and what's wrong. Really, really good dialogue scene, and it's where Claude Rains, I'm he doesn't get enough credit because that's if you gave it to anyone else, I feel like it wouldn't be as good.
Right.
But he just delivers it so well, and it's such a good scene, and you feel bad, and there's that part where near the end where he's out there. He's got the cane that Larry bought, and the very cane, he runs into the fortune teller woman, and he's like, I don't believe in this, and she's like, then why do you have the cane? He does believe it,
right?
But I do appreciate a spoiler that that Larry gets beat to death with the very cane he bought.
Well, and it's
the
funny.
Very pence he was returning.
And it's funny because you mentioned that one scene, but my favorite scene is a similar yet different scene. Is later on when he's basically telling him you have to strap me to this, I'm gonna be strapped to this thing.
Yeah.
And he's really pleading with him, so much so that he's he gives him the thing and basically says without saying it, if I'm right, do what you gotta do with this. And I think that right there is all the proof that I need to say. Larry Talbot is the most tragic character of the entire Universal Monsters.
That scene when he walks into the church and everyone's looking at him, are you gonna sit down? And he's just he can't walk through that threshold of to the altars and stuff. He can't because of this dilemma. And it's just such a, out of all these Universal movies, you say he's the most tragic. I agree. It's just he's a very tragic character. It's not because Frankenstein's monster is tragic.
Yes.
But the creature is a tragic kind of story, but this one is just you have the human element of the tragedy,
right? And
and some would say is already gone.
And some would say the monster was dealt a bad hand from the beginning. That's true, but he's only been around for such a short period of time. This is a man who's dealing with, like, the monster didn't have a life once had and now lost. Larry Talbot does, because he can't go back to the way he used to be. And when you get into the sequels, he gets even more tragic. Yeah. Because not Wolfman sequels, because this never got one, but he's always trying to figure out how he can become the wolf, or get rid of being the wolf, because he even mentions it's like I've tried to die. I've tried to do it, and I haven't been able to do it. And he can't find anyone who's willing to do it for him, because he can't do it, because, suicide's out of the question. Someone else has to do it. And I mean, like I said, he has to be, in my opinion, the most tragic character in this whole universe.
Yeah. And here we are, our last film. We fast forward to 1954.
Yes.
Jack Arnold's Creature from the Black Lagoon. Not Creature of the Black Lagoon, Creature from the Black Lagoon, which I always mess up. But for some reason.
But you know what? That may not be the title, but it's still an accurate thing to say, because that's where he is.
Yeah, and it's basically, he is there. It's like what are they doing? They're doing like an exposition. Not exposition.
They're going on an expedition. They're going on an expedition. Now you got me doing it. An expedition to, I believe they're looking for fossils of extinct creatures.
Yeah.
And one of the fossils they end up finding is that of a fossilized Gill Man.
Yeah.
Which he eventually becomes known as the Gill Man. And they find one of his arms. And so they're going back to try and see if they can find more.
Yeah. And they do.
Oh, yes, they do.
By the way, the Gill Man was played by the underwater, the swimming one, Raquel. I believe his first name is Raquel, or I believe it's French, Browning, who passed away this year, 2023. So it's crazy. I mean, you think he was still alive, and you realize this was like 1954.
Yeah, this one wasn't as old as the other ones.
Yeah.
And yet,
this was in 3D apparently.
But that shows the longevity of the Gill Man himself. The fact that he's lumped in with all these other characters from 20 years prior, and he fits right in there. You don't question it. You don't question whether or not, or you don't question, like, why is this character from the 50s in with movies from the 30s and 40s.
Yeah, it's got also got the element of like
the underwater element, which is new.
Great, it's great. There's also the element of like a Beauty and the Beast kind of element
to an extent. Yeah,
because you don't really have that. I mean, we're not going to count Bride of Frankenstein. I'm not counting that.
Right.
Dracula manipulated the women.
The closest
and hypnotized them. This one was more of like the Gill Man just has an infatuation, and you don't understand the Gill Man a little bit.
Yeah, the closest to this of the movies we're doing for this, I would say would be The Mummy, because at least he has a love interest of sorts.
That's true.
But it's not like this. This is I agree with you. This is more like Beauty and the Beast in the sense of
there's no maliciousness of the Gill Man.
No, and the thing is like him discovering his love for Kay.
Yeah.
One of the few characters whose names I remember.
Julia Adams, who was she's great in this too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, everybody in this movie. I'll say this. This is the one that has the best like ensemble. I don't know if I'm using that phrase properly. Cast, but this is the one that has the best like overall cast as far as like like Kay's great, Mark's great, David's great. The captain of the boat, he's great. I think one of my favorite moments is, I think it's near the end of the movie, when they realize what's going on and they're all trying to leave, but like, I can't remember if it's Mark or David, but like, the blonde guy, the dickhead. He's he's gone nuts. He's like, no, I'm gonna find this thing, I'm gonna kill this thing, whatever. And and everyone else is telling the captain like, hey, yeah, we need to turn around. And he looks the captain in the eye and says, no, you're not. You're gonna do, and he just pulls a knife on him, and is like, basically says, well, I'm the captain of the ship, and I'll do what I want.
Yeah.
I thought, like,
Captain Phillip that thing.
Yeah, stuff like that is what makes this movie great. I think this is like, of all of them, this one has the lightest in tone.
Yes.
As far as it's not, like
swimming.
when when the stuff with the Gillman isn't happening, I feel like this is it's almost like a tale of two movies. It almost feels like a non-horror movie when the Gillman isn't happening, which to me, I think is really good. I think one of my favorite things is when you're doing a horror movie and you can make people forget they're watching a horror movie. To me, that's an art form because it makes the scares or it makes the appearances of the creature in this case means so much more because they take you out of that false sense of security. Unfortunately for me, this one I think is lacking the most in story.
Yes.
There's not much story. It's more the expedition is more of a device for why they're there, and then they just kind of are there. And then the Gillman shows up. And then he leaves. And then he comes back. And there's stuff between Mark and David. And one's jealous of... The one guy's jealous of Kay's relationship with the guy. Even though they're clearly engaged. And... What is with these movies and, like, engaged dudes... Or engaged women being, like, fawned over by not their fiancés? Because you got Wolfman did it. And now you got this one doing it.
Yeah. And the Mummy.
And the Mummy,
it kind of gets involved.
Sort of.
Imhotep's kind of like getting involved with Frank's.
But there's more things at play in the Mummy than those two.
But
as far as that
there's
goes.
not much going. But also, I will say the costume is great.
The costume is great. The underwater shots look beautiful.
Which was done by originally is credit for. I actually have notes here by Bud Westmore.
Yeah, I heard about this, but he took the credit from the woman who actually designed it,
Millicent Patrick.
Who was a
Disney animator, apparently.
Yes. It's funny you say that because I found that out in, not in doing my research, but I accidentally had research plopped in my lap.
Yeah.
And I was like, good on you, girl. Get your credit.
Yeah.
You deserve it. And she does. Because the Gillman is such an iconic look, and it's done so well. Again, those underwater shots, I feel bad for... You said his name, but the actor who had to do that in the underwater shots. Because I have to believe that thing was heavy.
Yeah.
You look at a 50s monster suit or even a 30s, 40s monster suit, it looked like they were weighed down. And to be able to do all that swimming and all that stuff, I mean, good on anybody who
So could we say that Millicent Patrick is the Bill Finger of the... Universal horror films.
Yes, you know what? That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it.
To those who don't know, Bill Finger and Bob Kane created Batman, but Bob Kane decided, I'm Bob Kane. I'm gonna take off. Do your Bob Kane.
I don't even remember how I Bob Kane.
We used to do Bob Kane a lot. Bob Kane.
But Bob Kane is a jerk who cared more about money than making sure people got the right credit. Yeah. But it is nice. I mean, it's a shame these people don't get to see it in their lifetime. But it is nice that it's out there, and if there is such thing as heaven, they can look down knowing that their story got told and people know.
There's something that I'm gonna be a downer before we do our list.
Okay.
My fiance Christy, she pointed out that it was during the beginning of Frankenstein where they're all doing the funeral scene, before they steal the body, And she's like, imagine not one of these people are still alive. And she's like, this person's definitely not alive. That person's not alive. And they pan over to the skeleton scarecrow thing. That person's definitely dead. But it's just sad when you think, all these people are dead. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Creature. There might be some people that are still alive from Creature. But not from Dracula.
I'm gonna go on a limb and say, with the exception of Creature from the Black Lagoon, I can say with all certainty, dead.
All right, here we are. We made it. This was a lot less pain than the Friday 13th, and definitely less pain than the Halloween movies.
Well, I mean, again, it helps when all the movies are good.
So we're gonna do our rankings. We're gonna go from the bottom to the top. As I'm gonna say again, these are all good movies. These rankings are just personal tastes of would I rewatch it more than the other? That's how I view it.
Yeah.
And how much strength and how much meat are on the bone.
This is basically if you had to pick.
Yeah.
Because, like he said, saying one of these movies is bad is just not possible.
No. So we're gonna start from 6 and up to the top one.
All right.
So Scott, you want to go first on this one?
I do want to go first.
Okay, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is going to be The Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Really?
While I do think it was well done, and I do think it's a good movie, compared to the other ones, I find the story to be lacking. This is one that I would probably not. It might lose me a little bit from time to time when I'm watching this. Like if I'm not watching this on the right mode, I might not even pay attention at all.
Strangely enough, my number 6 is also Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh, okay.
I had the same reasons why.
The look in your eyes made me think you were shocked.
No, I thought I was the only one that kind of thought. Ironically enough, I love the design of Creature, and I have a Creature tattoo, and all kinds
and a patch on your
and
your vest.
And I have a back patch, not a vest anymore. I actually put it on a jacket.
Oh,
now.
cool.
Now I have it on my vest. I love the idea and the look of Creature, but I do think the movie is a little bit blah.
It's a, like I said, the expedition is a device to get you there, and then once you're there, it's just kind of stuff happens, but it's entertaining stuff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get some heat for this.
Okay.
Number 5 is gonna be Dracula.
My number 5 is Dracula as well.
Interesting.
I don't think, as I said, it's definitely it's the first one, but it's also one of the weaker ones based on there's not a whole lot of plot, and when they do, they kind of drag it out a little bit.
But also, you got to remember, this one set the tone.
Yes.
There was nothing to go off of as far as these monster movies. So in a way, I can forgive that.
I feel like the second half of Dracula is what drags it down.
Yes.
The first half is so good, and then once he's over there and you're dealing with, what's her name again? Mina. It's kind of, and after the scene where Van Helsing sees the mirror reflection, it kind of goes downhill because it just like they kind of like tread a little bit.
Yeah,
like, come on,
I agree.
Come on, and the ending just go. Oh, okay,
he's dead.
Yeah, he just got staked. Okay,
but like I said, it's still good. But yeah, this one does the least for me.
Yeah.
So for me, before watching Invisible Man for the first time, I already knew what my top 3 were going to be, or what movies were going to be there. Which was which, I can't say.
Yeah.
Originally, I was thinking it would be Invisible Man. However, that being said, I'm going to go with The Mummy.
Really?
I'm going to go with The Mummy.
Okay.
My reason for that is, while, good, there was just something about The Invisible Man that had me more hooked.
Okay.
As far as seeing that one for the first time. The other two, to me, are just, I don't know, those other 3 movies, they speak to me more than The Mummy. I do think it's as good as any of those 4, but for whatever reason, those other ones speak more to me.
Yeah. My number 4 is The Invisible Man. It's just, I don't know. It's fun. It's a fun little watch. I think you took more out of it than I did. I've always kind of been like, oh, it's fine. It's fun. It's not scary. It doesn't have that cool universal horror like fog, dark shadows, everything. It doesn't have all that. It does in the beginning when he shows up, but like, it's definitely the black sheep of the group. Like, it's just so...
Well, it's the only one that's not really a monster. Yeah, that makes sense.
The tone also is very, like...
silly at times.
It's silly and different. It doesn't have that gothicness to it. I know, like, Wolfman does, but I know, like Creature doesn't. But, like, no. It's still like the Gilman's kind of...
But he's a monster.
Yeah. Compared to my top 3, it's just not in that level, in my opinion. What's your number 3?
Number 3 is going to be The Invisible Man.
Okay. That's what I figured.
I had a really good time with it. I liked the idea of him being invisible right away. I liked the idea of... I don't know what it was. I think for me, that odd, like, different tone and pace and mentality, I think did it for me. Plus, you say it's not scary, but to me, I think it's scary on a more psychological way. Like imagine a crazy
power.
person or a mad person or an evil person who had the ability to not be seen. What they could do with it, what they could do to you with it.
That was a great scene when they had back to just talking about it. That was a great scene when like they're doing the radio announcement.
Yeah,
and everyone's like locking their doors and stuff like that because that is scary. Like,
and the scary part is
they could be in here right now.
Yeah, you're locking the door. For all you know, you're locking them in with you.
Yeah,
and you have no idea. To me, that's scary.
Yeah,
that's terrifying.
But you mentioned something off camera about you didn't tell me what it was. I'm kind of curious of what it is. There's a tie with the love interest. What's her name?
Yeah. Julie? So in doing my research, I accidentally found out that I believe the actress from this movie who played Jack's girlfriend went on to be in Titanic as the old version of Rose.
And ironically, she was in love with someone named Jack.
It's even more ironic when you factor in that there wasn't enough for two in that movie either.
Anyway, my number 3 is The Wolfman. This was tough. Wolfman was teetering on number 2 and number 3. The only thing about The Wolfman is kind of simple and it's kind of short. I wish it was a little longer, a little more.
Well, all these movies are about an hour and 10 minutes, with the exception of Creature.
I feel like this one could have been like a little bit more because I was really digging the dilemma of Larry and all that, and I think this also is a movie that just ends, and you're like, oh wow, okay.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not familiar enough with movies of that era, so I don't know if that's a thing that movies just did back then, or if that was what horror movies did back then.
Yeah, it also needed a little more Wolfman for me, I think.
I can understand.
Yeah,
that.
so Wolfman, I mean, still it's top 3. I mean, it was almost number 2. It was tough. The top 3 was a tough one for me. So it might change tomorrow.
Hey, it was made tougher for me once I finally watched Invisible Man.
Okay, so what's your number 2?
Wolfman.
Oh, Wolfman. Okay.
I love Larry. I love. It sounds statistic, but I love the tragedy of Larry Talbot. I love the performance, just Lon Chaney's performance. That feeling of dread, that feeling of fear.
If this was the 21st century, he'd be on WebMD right now.
Oh yeah, he embodies every hypochondriac you ever met. But it's done so well. I like the dynamic of him with everybody. It's just Lon Chaney Jr., man. There's no other way to put it. Without him, if anyone else in that role, I don't think, even someone as good as Boris Karloff or Bela Lugosi.
I don't think Boris could have done it.
I don't think anybody else could have done it. And the funny thing is, I think Bela Lugosi was up for the role.
Yeah.
And they gave him the role of Bela as like a make good.
I can't see it.
I don't think anyone could do it the way he did. Like I said, of all of them, he is the best actor of the monsters. Like I said, if you don't count the Invisible Man, Claude Rains, because he's not really a monster, but if you count as an actual not human monster, he is the best actor of all of them.
Yeah. My number 2. Oh my god. Oh my god. It's The Mummy. It's tough. The Mummy I watched Frankenstein last, by the way, because Christy hasn't seen Bride and all the other ones, so we're going to watch that next after we did this whole thing. But Mummy was on the top. I think Mummy's going to beat Frankenstein, because I haven't seen Frankenstein in a hot minute. I usually do it every Halloween. I haven't done it in the past 2 years. But after rewatching Frankenstein, Mummy is number 2 because Mummy is just so good. It was almost number 1. It's just so good. I like it a little more. It has a lot more meat on the bone. Has a lot of different elements to it, a lot of different players in the game, there's murder and there's not much mystery. Sadly, it's one of those things Ardith Bay is Imhotep. Right. But they don't, and it's one of those movies sadly a lot of the older movies do this where you know who it is, and you're waiting for the characters to figure it out.
Yeah, I feel like it took a while before the idea of like, no. The audience should also not know.
Yeah,
I think
that part is, yeah.
I don't know if that was more thinking the audience was stupid, or I think maybe no one just thought of it. Maybe everyone thought like, oh, like the mystery should go, maybe one day someone said, maybe the mystery should go beyond the film, but it should go to the audience member watching the film.
Maybe it's because we know that it's Boris Karloff as the Mummy.
Well, that might
I
also
think back
be
then they had no
factor.
clue.
Right.
So, the Mummy. And I'll just say it. Number 1,
Frankenstein. It's the best one. It just is. It has all the right beats. It has that right tone. The characters are so well done. Just everything about this movie is just done so well. Colin Clive as the Doctor, Henry, is just so good at being both like the deranged mad scientist, but then also being like the normal, like everyman, once he kind of gets that out of his system and has to stop the monster.
And this also says something about Mary Shelley, I think, is there's so many different adaptations of these universal monsters. There's the werewolf, there's the vampire. Frankenstein has always been the same.
He's never been another. It's always been the monster of Frankenstein. It's never been of somebody else.
And it's always the same elements: stitches, electricity, the undead, nature versus nurture. It's always been these elements in every single one. Dracula and the vampires always changed to different elements have changed. The werewolf, they got rid of the wolfsbane thing most of the time.
It's the only one that you also don't see updated a lot. A lot of times, the vampires, they'll try to modernize it. Wolfman, they'll modernize it. All these other movies, they'll modernize it.
It's so classic.
And I don't know if it's because they
tried. I mean, I love Frankenhooker, but they try with stuff like Frankenhooker.
And it's like maybe it just doesn't work in a modern setting. Have they ever done like something where a character's name is Frank N. Stein?
Oh, probably. It sounds so
because
stupid.
I'm saying like I'm surprised that I've never seen that done.
That's pretty stupid. I think someone tried done it.
But it's just everybody is so good. You have you have 3 great characters in this. You have Henry, who is both the light and dark side of someone's conscience. You have Fritz, the assistant, who has his own personality, who's, like I said, he's just a dick to the monster. And then you have the monster himself, who, by not saying a word, you get everything you need to know.
Even Edward von Sloan, I mean, his character's a little bit minor, but like he's kind of like the little angel on Henry's shoulder. He's not really an angel. He's more of like a good conscience, saying like, "This is wrong, guy."
That would be the angel.
Yeah, but also his bride to be could be the angel, but like he's just like, no.
He basically Henry Frankenstein is an example of what happens when you have a good support system.
Yeah. And also, of course,
check on your friends.
The lab, everything about it is just so good. The lighting, and somehow, some way, the bride and son top it in every way. It's so crazy on how like Frankenstein of the trilogy. I mean, you can count Ghost and House, but those first 3 are so great.
Ghost of Frankenstein, House of Frankenstein suck.
Yeah.
If you're gonna treat Frankenstein, treat the Universal Frankenstein like a trilogy, that it's like you're just constantly going up the hill. You've got the original, you got Bride, and then you got Son, which I don't know why more people don't talk about. It's so good.
Yeah.
I can't recommend enough. We'll do the sequels down the road, but
out of the
and that's the thing.
Frankenstein's the weakest one. What?
But it's funny because of the ones we reviewed, Frankenstein is the best. And yet, it's also the one with sequels. And their sequels are the best.
Yeah.
Like, they really nailed it with that, with the Frankenstein monster. So, Mary Shelley, we salute you for a great franchise.
She made a cinematic universe. And she didn't even know it.
Yeah, and then Universal trying to do it. But you know what? We may not have a dark universe, but there is a light side to it. And that is that we still, to this day, have these classic movies that we can watch as much as we want, anytime we want. They're all available streaming or to rent in some way, shape, or form. So go watch them for yourself.
Highly recommend getting the Blu-ray set.
Yes, if you can
Great.
find the sets, please do it. It's worth your time. And really, any of these movies, you really can't go wrong.
No.
So that's our thoughts on the original Universal Monster movies, the heavyweights at least. So let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below, which one you think is the best. Don't forget to criticize our rankings. Tell us that our costumes are stupid. And most of all, have a happy Halloween, guys.
Yes.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, Make a Dish Productions. Wade and I also have a band called Meteor King, which you can find at meteorking.bandcamp.com. Has links to all the social media.
We have an EP called Samhain We Reign, and it's Samhain season, so listen to it.
Yeah. And then listen to the other stuff.
And we also have an album called Deep Crimson, which is about vampires.
Yeah. And also, don't forget to watch the Criterion Connection. You know, I'm not on it that much, but I like it.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, we just hope you enjoyed this. We hope you enjoy other Mint Condish productions. And happy Halloween, guys. So until next time, I'm Scott.
And I am... Oh, wait. Oh, I'm Wade. Happy Halloween.